Okay, so I think we are live. Smriti, are you there?
Morning.
Morning, ma'am.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, it's now morning for us though.
Morning.
That's true. Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, so I think we should get started with this,
I don't think it's live. Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's not live on YouTube right now.
It's
No, it's not.
it's
I
not.
can't see it.
It's live
Oh,
for me.
it's loading.
Now
Cool,
I
cool.
can.
It's
Okay,
on now. Cool, thanks.
okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Okay.
Okay, so how many have joined? So I think a lot of people have joined already, and we should be good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so people can moderate the chat now. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's begin. Let's get started
Okay.
with this event. Okay, so Smriti, would you like to introduce the MSP program?
Yeah. So we're the Microsoft student partners of with the Microsoft student.
Like, we are like full-time students who like aim to empower people, and like we do a lot of hackathons or like organize webinar sessions and like bunch of other stuff. So our main aim is like to empower people so that they can go and like empower a few more people in their community. So yeah, I think that's what we do in a nutshell. And today, so we have like a 3-day event which is called TechStream, and thank you all of you to for joining this event. And I think
Joining
it's
us, yes.
yeah, I think it's great that so many people already joined, and like a lot of people are joining right now. I can see. So it should be,
So
yeah, it should be a good event. But like before we start, I want to mention that we will also be giving up certificates for those of you who are joining today and like will be joining for all the 3-day, like the continuous 3-day event. And also we're gonna have lots of fun events, like fun activities, as well as like a Kahoot quiz at the end as well. Do you want to add anything, Smriti?
no, I think that we're good to go. So today is the keynote speaker session, and we're going to be joined by 3 super amazing professionals from different aspects of the industry who will be sharing their knowledge with you guys. So if you guys have any questions, we can take that after the talk. There'll be a round of Q&A for about like 10 minutes where you can ask your questions. We'll be relaying them to the speakers, and they will be answering them.
And you can just continue, like if you have any questions in the middle, you can always ask it in the chat section. We'll be monitoring them, and our speakers will be answering your questions. So with that, I think we should move on to our first speaker, who is none other than Dona Sarkar, and we are all fan of Dona Sarkar. And she's like the principal advocate for Microsoft's Power Platform, and she's also the former head of Microsoft Windows Insider at Microsoft, and is also the author of a series of non-fiction books, which I'm sure you must have heard or read before. So without any further ado, let's just invite her. Hello, ma'am.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Oh, and can you see my
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah,
and you can see my slides?
yeah, we can see your slides.
Yes,
Okay.
they're visible. Yeah.
Perfect. So first, I want to thank the MSP program because Microsoft student partners are a very, very important community to Microsoft. You help us reach people in the world who we would not usually be able to reach, because Microsoft does a lot of work with big companies. We do a lot of work with small companies, but we actually don't have the scale to get out into all of the universities and high schools in the world. And that's why we rely on our student partners to help us do that. What is really important to note is we're always asking for more student partners to exist. We want thousands of student partners. Ideally, we want 10,000 student partners in the world. Right now, we don't have 10,000 student partners. So if all of you tuning into the call who are not student partners would like to become one, go to the Microsoft Student Partner site and check out what the requirements are. They're fairly basic. You have to learn tech, and it doesn't matter what kind of tech that is, like whichever kind of Microsoft tech is most interesting to you. It can be Azure, it can be M365, it can be Power Platform. And then you go out and teach people exactly in this kind of format, where you host events for people in your university. They can be for the business school students, the English students, the language students, all kinds of students. and then you let us know what you did. And that is a really, really good way to become a student partner. Once you become a student partner, there's a bunch of other benefits that come with it. Like, we invite you to our events, there's competitions and opportunities to interview and all kinds of things. So it's our way of building relationships with the next generation, and we really hope that many of you take us up on it. So thank you, MSPs, for organizing TechStream. This is a really, really good event. So that's why there's so many people tuning in. So thank you. So today I would like to talk about something a little different, about the Power Platform. How many of you, and just think to yourself, have heard of the Microsoft Power Platform? And you can just enter into the chat, yes or no. And it's absolutely fine if you've never heard of it, because up until about 6 months ago, I didn't actually know what the Power Platform was. I knew it was some series of products in Microsoft, and they were used by some people in businesses somewhere. And then something very interesting happened. And by interesting, I mean bad. This is Shamal. Shamal is my dad, and he's also my best friend. For 30 years, Shamal has worked at the Ford Motor Company in a city called Detroit, Michigan, here in the US. Detroit is where all car manufacturing started. And as you know, Ford was the first company to make cars. He's worked there for 30 years on a plant floor that looks like this, where cars come off the assembly line, and he validates that all of the stamping and the metal work is done right before it goes off the line and goes onto the show floor. So Shamal is not a technical person. Unfortunately, in September of last year, Ford had a humongous layoff and laid off 10,000 people. And they laid off anyone who is not technical. And the reason for that is they really wanted to keep the employees who were going to work on self-driving cars. And the people who were not going to work on self-driving cars, they laid off as an effort to reduce costs. Now, this was a devastating thing for 10,000 people plus their families, but it was also very devastating for me because my dad is nowhere near ready to retire. He has absolutely nothing to do. And suddenly he's sitting at home, depressed, lonely, and confused about what he's going to do now for the rest of his life. I'm sure all of you know someone who's been in that boat. The next person I'd like to introduce you to is Yeshua Russell. He's the CEO of a company called Group Power. Group Power makes solar panels. He lives in Abuja, Nigeria, where the power goes out quite a bit. And Abuja is a place where it's technologically good, but it's not a place where technology goes to first. So Yeshua had never used the HoloLens, which is a mixed reality device by Microsoft. He'd never had a chance to use this. And I smuggled it into the country and gave him a demo and showed him how to build for it. He thought this was amazing and would be so useful for his business, but this is not something that he, as a non-software engineer, can build for. He told me, Donna, I'm not a coder. I don't know how to build for this. And I didn't know what to tell him, because you kind of do have to be pretty good at the Windows SDK to build for HoloLens. So for years, maybe about 10 years, I've believed in this mission that everybody in the world should learn coding. I learned coding. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and it gave me powers and opportunities that I never would have had otherwise. There's just no way. I should be working on a factory floor of Ford Motor Company. That should be the best job I could possibly have if I didn't learn coding. So this is me teaching a young woman coding during Code.org's Hour of Code Week in New York City a few years ago. One thing I started to realize after talking to my dad and Yeshua is that everyone in the world is not actually going to start coding. It won't happen because people don't have time to go get a 4-year computer science degree, and people don't have time to enroll in coding boot camps. They have jobs, they have families, they have education, they have all these other things they need to do. So we at Microsoft decided to do something different. Instead of 7.6 billion people learning to code, how about we figure out a mission of empowering 7.6 billion people to build and make solutions to solve their own problems? And how can they do that without actually learning to code? We decided that together with our global community of people like you, we're going to start this global movement called Less Code, More Power. So we're going to focus on writing less code, but having more power to do great things. So along with every global movement comes a set of tools that must be invented. Our set of tools falls into this category of things, and it's growing at every given moment. every week we roll out new features, functionalities, and products to Microsoft's Power Platform. It falls into 4 big pieces and a bunch of underlying pieces that I'd like to walk you all through. The Power Platform is built on top of Azure. So for all of you who are learning Azure, this is great news because this is how the Power Platform scales. So Power BI is built on SQL Azure. Power Virtual Agents is built on the Bot Framework. Power Apps is built on Azure Apps. Power Automate is built on Logic Apps. So these are all taking all of that great functionality that you're used to in Azure and stripping away all the code pieces so that anyone in the world can use them without actually having to learn a lot of coding. And of course, you can extend them all using Azure, using Visual Studio, and all of these tools that you're used to. So what is the Power Platform anyway? There are a few pieces. One, the one that all of you may have heard of because I talk about it non-freaking-stop, is Power Apps. This is the low-code approach to building apps. This is a really easy way for people to use drag-and-drop tools to build mobile apps for whatever problem you're solving. I always assign homework. And it's been really, really cool to see some of the things that people have done. I'll show you some examples later. But a young man sent me an app maybe 2 days ago. And he said he'd built an app to track the household expenses in his family's household. So he's able to say how much money they're spending on gas or food or water or all of these things. And it really helps them track expenses during this hard time when everyone's at home and people aren't making that much income. So big companies can use this, small companies can use this, but all of these apps are you write once and you run, whether it's on your phone, it can be on your web browser, or it can be within Microsoft Teams. Some major areas of Power Apps that I think are very, very cool are AI Builder, which lets you automatically generate UI and embed a ton of intelligence into your apps without you actually having to do a lot of work with the bot framework or cognitive services. The second one are Power Apps portals. Power Apps portals are websites that are low code. So you can use the exact same method that you'd use to build a Power App to build a Power App portal. On Wednesday of last week, I did an end-to-end build-up of my fashion company, Dona, that I run on the side. And it started with me building up a page in a Power App portal to show customer feedback. Then it translated into me making a inventory and sales and customer feedback management app for my team, and then looking at all of the analytics via Power BI. A brand new thing that I want everyone to try out, especially everyone here, is to go sign up for mixed reality in Power Apps. So this is a way where you can use all of the magic of HoloLens, so seeing mixed reality objects like rulers and 3D objects in your real world, all through the device that you've got. So I highly recommend everyone look up this blog post. Just look up introducing mixed reality in Power Apps. Scroll to the bottom. There's an email address that you email, and you can join the private preview. If you join the private preview, you will join me and about 100 other people who are building these mixed reality apps to try to really figure out how we can use mixed reality in our real world. I found this to be one of the coolest things in Power Apps by far, and I highly recommend everyone try it as well. The next part of Power Apps or Power Platform is Power Automate. This is the low-code automation platform. This is a way you can automate all sorts of interesting scenarios in your life. So say you want to receive a notification on your phone whenever someone sends you a message on LinkedIn, or whether someone visits your website, or whatever kind of automation. There's over 300 kinds of connectors, and there's some very, very interesting things you can do with this automation. So one of my favorite things is when someone goes to my website and visits a page and puts an item from my fashion line into a cart, I get a trigger on my phone to know that a sale might be happening or a customer's thinking about it. So a brand new thing that we actually are no longer in public preview, we're in general availability at this point, is a thing called robotic process automation, or RPA. This is a way where old apps, like imagine apps that didn't have API surfaces, can also get automated using these UI flow connectors. So what you do is you record the steps to use a legacy app, and then you can edit those steps and then play it back anytime you want, so you as a human don't have to do this work. The third part of Power Platform, and this is probably my favorite, is Power Virtual Agents. This is automatically generated bots that you modify. I did a demo for this for my fashion line as well that answers customer questions. One of my favorite things about Power Virtual Agents is that a bot is automatically generated for you. So you go to Power Virtual Agents at Microsoft. So just look that up and you'll see that a bot is automatically generated. And then you can customize it any which way. You customize the greeting to be in your own language. You can customize the greeting to be funnier. You can exit the bot any way you want. There's so many things you can add to it. One of the most useful things for a business is turning an FAQ, like a frequently asked questions page that every business has, into a bot with just a few clicks here. So I did this for my fashion line in my demo. I went to my FAQ page, imported that FAQ page into this bot, hit add topics, and suddenly all of my 5 FAQ questions were added as topics. So for any company that already knows what their top questions are, they can already have a bot to answer that. What I really like about Power Virtual Agents is you can embed these bots anywhere. You can have it on a demo website. You can have it on your personal website. You can put it in a Power Apps portal. You can put it on a Facebook page. You can put it in Teams. You can put it in Slack. You can put it in so many places. I personally put it onto the website of my fashion line. You can see it now. It doesn't work that well because I broke it. On Prima Donna Studios /questions, you can scroll to the bottom and see my Power Virtual Agent bot there. You can also integrate all of the question and answers that's coming in from customers, so you can track what are the most common questions you get, and you can improve your bots over time by figuring out which questions are not getting answered or which questions are being asked the most. All of this can be run out of this backend relational database called the Common Data Service. When people start off with Power Platform, they usually start with Excel spreadsheets or SharePoint lists. But once you get to a point where you actually know what you're doing and you have a lot of data, I recommend moving over to the Common Data Service. For my own fashion line, I'm moving over to CDS right now because I need to be able to relate my data in more than just columns and rows. So an example is, say I've got a red dress and I have 100 pieces of customer feedback for it. I don't want to create a line item in Excel for each piece. So what I would want to do is create one line item and then have it relate to 100 pieces of feedback. So because of this reason, I'm going to be moving to CDS in the next week, and I'll also be doing a live demo for that. So what does AI have to do with this whole thing? We all know Microsoft's really big on AI, especially responsible and ethical AI. So many people and businesses assume AI is way too complicated and will never have a use case to start maximizing these capabilities. This is so not true, but companies feel this way. They assume that they don't have the skills to learn AI. They also think that AI is going to, eat our brains and kill us all, like Skynet. All of us here on the call know that AI is super important and definitely one of the ways that we're going to get all of our future jobs and separate ourselves so that we're not doing so much manual labor, and instead the machine's doing that extra work for us. You'll be very happy to know that AI is already baked into the Power Platform. So in Power Platform, as soon as you go from creating a Canvas app out of an Excel spreadsheet, which is the homework you're going to get, that is the AI builder at work. So taking those columns and rows and deciding which are the important ones to show in each of the screens, that's all done through AI Builder. Using anything in AI Builder is also one of the main ways that AI is used in Power Platform. And then looking at all of the questions in Power BI, where you can make some Power BI dashboards and then say, ask questions of my data, that's all done through AI. It's already all around us, and it makes things much easier. So Canvas App Builder is one of my favorite things, where you can go here in Power Apps and you can say, I'd like to start with the data source, whether that's SharePoint or SQL or Excel or whatever it is. And then it automatically generates this app, all done through AI. The app checker, which teaches you whether you've forgotten to link up a button in your app to something or whether one of your pictures is not showing up. This is all done through AI. AI Builder's current scenarios that people really like are form processing. This is that scans and processes giant amounts of data that's written down in handwritten format on a piece of paper. So imagine all those forms you have to fill out for school. Imagine if AI Builder can process all those so some human doesn't have to look at them. The other one I really like is the business card reader, where we get business cards all the time. It'd be really cool to scan, and then that information, the person's name, their email address, where they work, is all scanned and put into your database. So using Power Platform, people in any business group can create apps and solutions for their specific problems. So for example, if you work in sales, then you can figure out like, okay, what does the self-service food menu look like? What does order entry and updates look like? How can the orders that go all the way back to your factory look? If you happen to work in finance or compliance, this is really good for budget trackers or blockchain or GDPR or that kind of thing. So it works across all of these areas, not just the tech group or the tech team or the tech majors in your schools. Power Apps, it has a pretty big customer base. There are about 3 million people in the world using Power Apps at this point, and you can see that these are big companies. So for all of you who would be interested in working in a big company at some point or another, Power Apps is a really good thing to learn because it's something you can introduce to your company and suddenly you look very ahead of the curve and you look like you know what's going on because this is a brand new tech that is easy to learn, easy to use, and can be used by so many people in a company, not just professional developers. So one of the things I really like about Power Apps is it's not just app and solution building by people who are coders. Many of you might be coders and some of you might not be. What I like is that you can be a coder and use Power Apps to do many things. I personally am a coder, but I still love Power Apps because it lets me build things that I don't really like to build. Like for example, I don't like to build UI. I hate it, and I love that it's automatically generated for me. I don't like to build iOS apps. I don't have a MacBook. I'm never going to have a MacBook, so I can't build an iOS app. But with Power Apps, I can, and all I had to do was have a Windows PC, an Excel spreadsheet, and suddenly I've got an iOS app. It really helps people in the world who come from very different backgrounds. Like you'll see some of the pictures of the people under citizen devs. These people are a security guard at Heathrow Airport. Keith used to be a bus driver. I used to know someone who used to be a bricklayer. And these people have all changed their lives by being Power Platform devs. So for all of you who'd like to start, who'd like to try this, don't try to solve a huge problem. I highly recommend you solve a small problem that you're using either a spreadsheet or a bunch of pieces of paper to track. For me, the very first thing I built was a to-do list that was synced across a bunch of my data sources. I, of course, have things written down on 100 sheets of paper, and I wanted it all sunk up in one place, and that is the app I built for myself. Second one I built was an imposter syndrome vanishing spell app. I have a book and a talk on the imposter syndrome, and sometimes I find myself impostoring. And what do I have on my phone all the time? My imposter syndrome app that I can go through whenever I find myself freaking out. Like, oh my God, I have to do a live demo in front of who knows how many people on a video call. I'm scared. Let me go through the vanishing spell, and I use my Power App to do that. So for all of you who'd like to learn, I highly recommend you learn in groups. That's how I learned. That's how so many of these people learned. So create a LinkedIn group or a WhatsApp group specifically for learning Power Platform in your school or in your community and learn together. Do assignments together and measure the success. Is it helping you have some sort of efficiency in your life? Is it helping save time, money, trees, etc.? If you need ideas for assignments, you know I'm very happy to give them to you. We have a ton of resources. You can look up this hands-on lab content. So App in a Day is a way where there's virtual App in a Days too, by the way. You can go look up virtual App in a Day and find a way that you could do this in your own house and learn to build all of this stuff. This is the exact agenda that you'll learn to build sitting right in your house whenever you want. The big superpower of Power Platform community is our community. There are a lot more than 1.4 million community members. There are so many user groups, 409, but we don't have enough. We want more. We want more and more and more. Right now, we want a whole bunch of these virtual events to happen. And once we're back online and able to travel and go places, we really want more in-person events all over the world. One of my specific missions is to go to places where we are just starting to have Power Apps user groups. One of the places that's new for Power Platform user group is Lagos, Nigeria. So last year, I went to Lagos and I met this young woman, Foyen Olajide Bayo, and she's from this company called Sterling Bank, which is the biggest bank in Nigeria. She realized they had a really dumb problem. They were moving money from ATMs of these banks, or from the vaults of the banks to the ATMs, and they were tracking it through these Excel spreadsheets that they were then adding up the numbers of and mailing it to some central place. She thought this is stupid. She built a Power App to solve this problem, and then it saved that bank 100 hours a week. And suddenly Foyan is head of the Citizen Banks Department. She's hiring people. And she started the very first user group in Nigeria for Power Platform. So this is pictures from their first event. You can see it was back in November. And their first event drew, this crowd of maybe about 50 people. And all of us from around the world tuned into the event to speak at it and just to see how we can help. So first event, 50 people. Second event, 100 people. By the time they did an event on February 15th, they had 250 people. And as soon as I can travel again, this is the first place I'm going to go and meet all of the people in this user group and throw a big conference with them. Second person is someone closer to you. This is Hemantika Mitra, who I just met virtually last week. Hemantika joined us for a mentorship session I did for the Microsoft student partners. Everyone go off and build a sample Power App using my tutorial. And Hemantika went way beyond. She not only did the tutorial, but she built her own Power App that was tracking COVID cases across India by individual states based on data from the central government data source that was out there. So she used a data source that exists and she solved a local problem for people in her country. I thought this was amazing. So I chose to take Hemantika on as a mentor, as a mentee of mine, to help her learn and grow so she can also become a Power Platform expert and speak at events and help me host things all over the world. So thank you, Hemantika, for raising your hand, doing the thing, and happy belated birthday. It was her birthday yesterday. So why are we doing this? Why am I talking to you today? Why am I lecturing you on this huge, important topic? It's because at Microsoft, our mission is to empower every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more. We take the every very seriously. If our mission was just to empower, wealthy people in the western part of the world, then I would never leave Washington State. I'd never leave Seattle. But I get on planes every other week when we're traveling, and I travel all over the world. And nothing would make me happier than come to where you are and meet you at your school and at your university. So because it's me, there's always homework. I would like to choose someone to mentor out of all of you who are on the call. And if you are interested in being mentored, then I have homework for you. And even if you're not interested in being mentored, I recommend you do the homework anyway because it's good for you. So 1, total beginners, do my tutorial. It's a HTTP MS Power Up. This is the thing to take a picture of and share. Second one, if you know what's up, do this Power Academy. Power Academy is a series of 15 modules. They're all pulled from MS Learn and put in an order that Foyan, actually, you can see her here in the picture over here, that she thought was useful. And then I added to it and then I put it on my blog so that anyone in the world can use it as well. This Academy workflow is exactly what I use to learn the Power Platform. So if I can use it to learn, believe me, you can use it to learn. And then the third thing I'd love for everyone to do is connect with me on LinkedIn and tell me your story. Because this is how I meet people, by doing these events, assigning homework, and seeing who actually does the thing. Because if you do the homework, if you do the thing, I would love for you to show up in the next slide deck that I show, most likely next week. And there's 2 other extra announcements today. One, I'm one of the hosts of MBAS, which is the Microsoft Business App Summit. It's from May 5th through 7th. So I recommend you look that up and go register. I would love for you to be there. And I would love to tell your story at MBAS if you do go ahead and do the thing. Second thing is Microsoft's Build conference is coming up in May as well. I'm also a host for Build. And I'd love to tell your story at Build on the big screen if that's something you're interested in. If you're interested in these things, do the homework, reach out to me, connect on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for your time. I will switch back to the teams so that we can have questions. And I am ready for questions whenever.
Thank you so much, Dona, for that amazing talk. It was so informational. And now we're going to have a round of Q&As. We've got our first question up.
Perfect.
She says, can we integrate Power App bots on WhatsApp?
I think you can. So I know you can integrate into Teams. I know you can integrate into Slack. I haven't tried into WhatsApp, but what you should do is go to Power Apps, the builder page, make your first bot, go to over all the way to the left-hand side, go to custom websites, grab that sample code and see if you can integrate into WhatsApp. I'd be very curious if you can do it or can't, but consider it your homework to go try it and see what happens and let me know.
Okay, awesome. So I think we have one more question. So
Awesome.
the question is, can we share Power Apps with external users?
So it totally depends on how you're trying to do it. The way Power Apps works is it's for specifically a tenant. So it's supposed to work within a group of people who are associated in some way. But I've created my own tenant. I've said, I want these people who work for my fashion company to have access to my Power App, and I also want to invite guests. So that's how I do it. I have all of the core people at my company in my Azure tenant, Prima Donna Studios, and I invite guests like my tailors, my fabric suppliers, my operations people. They're all added as guests, and they can all see my Power App. They can all install my Power App. And then once we stop working together, I can just remove them as a guest and they lose access to it. The other thing that I really like about Power Platform is Power App portals. That is available to anyone externally. So the Power App portal I build is probably still up somewhere that people can see and access. And Power Virtual Agents also is accessible to everyone externally. So it's all possible. It just depends on how you do it.
Okay, amazing. So I think that was very clear, and I think that is it for the questions. There's one more question, I guess. Yeah.
There is one more question. The question says, how can we focus on a particular technology when we have multiple fields to explore around us?
Okay, so sorry, now dropped my laptop. And spilled my water. Good question though. It's very easy to get overwhelmed and say there's so many things to explore, right? And say, oh, I want to do bots, I want to do apps, I want to do websites, and there's so much going on. I have schoolwork, I have this, I have that. I recommend learning one thing at a time and building a thing using that. And remember that this tech isn't going anywhere. So when I started learning Power Platform, I actually started with Power Virtual Agents. I just thought it would be the most useful for me for my specific problem, which is solving customer questions, which is answering customer questions. So I choose one thing, I learn it pretty well, I implemented it, and what helps me to really learn is to explain it to others. So go pick one area, drill into it, learn it, volunteer to teach it to a few people like this. You've already got a great community right here. Volunteer to do a demo day, show and tell type thing. Or, ping me and I'm happy to see your demo. I love seeing Power Platform demos. And then once you learn it well enough, then move on and do the next thing. But just be really intentional about finishing one thing before you go and try to learn 5 things at the same time, because you will get overwhelmed and you will learn none of them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was very clear. And yeah, if you guys have any other questions, we will drop in the handle of Dona ma'am, the LinkedIn handle and Twitter handle. You can of course contact her and ask your doubts there. I think, yeah, thank you so much for this session. Awesome. It was amazing.
Thank you very much for having me. Everyone do your homework. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that was really awesome, and so it's time that we move on to our next speaker. So let me introduce our next speaker to you guys. So the next speaker is Chirag Mishra. He is a BTech graduate from IIT BHU, and for those of you watching from outside India, IIT is like the topmost ranked college in India, and it's like really difficult to get in. So he's a graduate from IIT BHU and is currently a software engineer too at Microsoft. He would be talking about how to prepare for jobs in the software world, and so all of us can relate, because right now a lot of us are everyone is a full-time student, and I think it will be a great talk. So let's welcome him. Chirag sir, are you there?
Yeah, thank you so much, Shayan, for the lovely introduction. I hope you guys can see and hear me.
Yes sir, we can see you.
Yes, you are
Awesome.
visible.
So, hello everyone. I'm Chirag Mishra, as you already know from Shan's introduction, that I am a software engineer too at Microsoft. Prior to joining Microsoft, I was an application engineer at Oracle, and I am a BTech graduate from IIT BHU. And fun fact out of that is my branch was mining engineering, and by mining I don't mean data mining, but it's coal mining. So I'm here today to break down some of the myths about the tech hiring process, and also to kind of explain you how it works and what interviewers expect out of candidates, and also to possibly to answer some of your questions that you have about interviews. So I've been on both the sides of the table in terms of interviewing for quite some time now. So I feel I should be able to give you some of the insights that you would need to crack tech interviews. So we will today be focusing mostly on top tech companies and their processes, because I'm sure a lot of you would have these as your dream companies. Let me quickly share my screen. Let me know when you guys can see it.
It's still loading actually, sir. So we'll let you know.
No problem. Sure.
It's visible now.
Awesome. So the way I've structured this today is that, let me gain control. Yeah. So we will first explore what these top tech companies actually look for in a candidate first, and then we will move on to how what a tech interview is based on, what qualities and what attributes we as interviewers look into candidates for, and then we will move to how to prepare for interviews, and then I'll give you an action plan for you guys. Since you're students, you have a lot of time, and you guys can plan out an action plan for yourself, which will help you get the dream job of yours. So at the end, I'll dedicate some time to answer any kind of questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat. I would request one of the admins to kindly let me know of the questions. So
yes,
yeah,
we are actually monitoring it, and once you finish your talk, we'll just gather them up and ask you.
Sounds perfect. Let's then dive right in. Cool. So what are these top tech companies actually looking for? So what I've done is I have collected a set of job descriptions, and I've taken out the requirements part out of every job description from top tech companies. Like for example, Amazon has this posted uh, as a requirement for an SDE role, which is a software development engineer role. So if you see that they require you to possess an extremely sound understanding in the basic areas of computer science, such as algorithms, data structures, object-oriented design, and databases. If you see Microsoft, they also have a requirement stating experience in developing, debugging, and maintaining code in object-oriented languages and database querying languages. Also, they look for strong coding, debugging, and algorithm design and problem-solving skills. There are some other companies as well, like Flipkart has recently been hiring very aggressively, and they also pay kind of really well. So that is also a company that a lot of people might be interested in. So if you see, they also have a bullet point that says good understanding of data structures and algorithms and their space and time complexities. Also, they have strong hands-on and practical working experience with at least one programming language, C, Java, C++, or C#. If you see Uber, Uber is also one of the big shots. Uber has stated quite clearly that they need experience in at least one of the programming languages, which is either Java, Go, Swift, Python, or JavaScript. Also, if you see, Uber has explicitly stated that you need to demonstrate software engineering experience through previous internships, work experience, hackathons, coding challenges, and or any publications if applicable. Right. So in fact, a lot of these new companies like Swiggy have also started including these skills in their JDs. Like Swiggy has mentioned good problem solving skills, sound knowledge and application of algorithms and data structures, and good knowledge of object oriented programming and design patterns. So if you look closely, you will observe a pattern in terms of the requirements. All of them require some things in common. Like proficiency in a programming language is the first and foremost thing that these companies look for. The second thing is data structures and algorithms. right? So you would see a lot of these companies ask in their interviews at length questions relating to these things. So let's yeah, I mean, we will deep dive into all of these in subsequent slides, but for now let's just understand what these companies are looking for. So let's switch gears and move to what an interview is based on. Yeah. So every interview is based on a specific area. We term it as area of. We term it as an area. What focus area an interviewer has picked would be completely different from the next interviewer and the next, and so on. So the first and foremost skill that we look as an interviewer into a candidate's profile is the analytical skills. So questions like this covers questions like, did you need much help solving the problem? How optimal was your solution? How long did it take you to arrive at a solution? And if you had to design a solution, did you structure the problem well? So you would see a lot of times interviewers ask you a question, then they kind of help you arrive to a solution, and then they suddenly change some of the parameters of the question. Like they would ask you to expand some of the features within the solution, or they might change some data, or they might add some arbitrary conditions to the problem, and they will just gauge how you structure the new problem, right? So a lot of times you will also find that to a particular solution there is a very optimal mathematical solution. So do not be surprised there. You should always look out for such patterns where you can solve the problem mathematically first and then try to implement it in code. The next thing we look for is the coding skills. I mean, this is a no-brainer, but yeah, we look at this a lot. So this covers a lot of questions like, were you able to successfully translate your algorithm to reasonable code? So in analytical skills, we gauged how you could solve a particular problem. Now once you have solved a particular problem, you can explain it as pseudocode, which is more or less like English. You can write pseudocode to explain to the interviewer that what you intend to do. But the next step takes it further. We look at coding skills. So we look at how you were successfully able to translate the solution that you came with to reasonable code. And do not make any mistake here. I would definitely recommend you to do a lot of hands-on practice there. I would definitely recommend you to, I mean, this might sound crazy, but I would say pick up a pen and paper and start solving a problem on pen and paper without the help of an IDE. Because what happens is that a lot of these tech companies focus on writing the code live. So you might be asked to write code on a piece of paper. You might be asked to write code even on a whiteboard. So to be kind of ready for these kind of situations and to not get thrown back, you should always experiment and practice on pen and paper. It is something that is very important. It also the coding skills also covers questions like, was your solution clean and organized? Did you think about the corner cases and potential errors? And also, this one is my favorite. Did you use good style? This is very subjective and it varies from interviewer to interviewer. Like my style of coding could be completely different from any one of yours. So this is something else, but there is definitely a best practices guide that you guys can follow to write optimal code. So that was about coding skills, and there are a couple more skills that we look at. So there is technical knowledge or CS fundamentals. So what these companies do is that they have a generic set of requirements, like some mention operating systems, some mention OOPS concepts, and some also based on the role, they also gauge your experience or your proficiency in the relevant technologies. For example, if I were a Salesforce developer at Microsoft, then the JD would definitely ask me to have some kind of experience or proficiency in Salesforce. Makes sense, right? So that is what comprises technical knowledge or CS fundamentals. Then the next part is experience, which I understand is not very relevant in your case, but I'll tell you how it is actually relevant. So what we look for is that, have you made good technical decisions in the past? Have you built something interesting and challenging? Have you shown drive and initiative? Have you taken the extra mile to solve a particular problem? Have you tried to do something optimally, or did you just apply patches at punctures like you fix a tire? Or did you just come up with an optimal solution no matter what? So this is what we look at. This is what we look at in terms of experience. And for you guys, it is a good way to showcase experience would be through your internships and your projects, and through courses that you take up, be it online or be it in person. So we will double click on this in a subsequent slide, but that is about experience. Also, a lot of these companies look at cultural fit and communication skills. These are some peripheral skills that we also look at in candidates. So what we specifically target to is that, does your personality and your values fit with the company and your team? Do you align with does your thought process align with the thought process and the vision of the team, and most importantly with the vision of the company? And also, did you communicate well with the interviewer? So it's always a very good thing to ask clarifying questions. Like if I ask an open-ended question to a candidate, then if he asks me a follow-up, like asking, hey, do you want this feature as well? Or hey, what about this? What kind of data is coming, and how do you want me to parse it? Follow-up questions are do make a lot of impressions in the interviewer's mind. So I would say that is also something that is really important. And again, one more thing that fits into cultural fit is that you asking questions. So if you notice that in every session and in every interview for that matter, what we do is that we dedicate some time at the end for you to ask questions to us. Now, do not make the mistake of thinking that these questions are not evaluated at all. That is completely false. If you show interest in a company, if you ask me what the team does, and if you ask me, let's say if I'm hiring you for my team, then if you ask me about some of the processes that happen in my team, or if about the values, or about the mission, or about the vision of my team, then I would be really impressed. That would give me an impression that you're kind of curious to know what the team, how the team works, and you are also interested in the team. It does go a long way in terms of showing your interest in the company and in the role. So that is one of the neglected points that a lot of people make mistake by just ignoring it. And I'll give you a quick tip. There is a very bad answer to do you have any questions for me? Some people directly ask, some candidates directly ask us interviewers like, hey, can you give me a feedback of my interview? That is a strict no. That is definitely a turn down for an interviewer. So you should refrain from asking such questions, because you know that the interviewer, he or she is bound by contract not to reveal these feedbacks. So definitely do not ask for a feedback immediately. Wait for some time. You will be contacted by someone, either the HR or the hiring manager, who can provide you feedback. So so to kind of show your interest in a particular team or a role or a company, you must ask relevant and important questions. Moving on. Yeah, so now comes the fun part. How do we actually prepare for it? Now, you might think, okay, there is just so much to study and there's so little time because we spend all of our day in watching memes. Because let's face it, memes are funny. So I have broken down the preparation part into two bullet points. The first one being the core competencies. So these core competencies are some things that you must have. Consider this as a must-have list for yourself. So as you might have already seen in the first few slides, a lot of these companies look at programming languages and they have listed explicitly Java, C++, C Sharp, etc. And to answer some of your questions, some of you might be thinking, hey, there's a list of programming languages that have been listed out. Which one do I pick up? So the industry goes by Java, C++, and C Sharp mostly. But yeah, it is definitely helpful if you learn any other simple programming language for that matter. Because at the end, your analytical skills somehow take over your coding skills. Because coding is something that you can be trained on. You can be trained on Java, you can be trained on C Sharp if you switch companies. But analytical skills are some things that you bring with yourself. So that is the first and foremost thing that you need to build on. And how to do it, we will cover in the subsequent slides. The second point is data structures and algorithms. You might be thinking, hey, now I know a programming language. My analytical skills are decent. Shouldn't I be going and solving problems directly? Well, to answer that, I have a couple of stories that I'll share. But before that, the third point is database basics. So this is something that is universal, and across all job descriptions, it will appear as a must-have or as a good-to-have feature, as a good-to-have skill, rather. So database basics. I mean, you should definitely start learning SQL. It's very simple and it won't take a lot of time. There's not a huge learning curve and you do not have to be super proficient with it, but at least the basics of database should be clear to you. Yeah, so now double clicking on the data structures and algorithms, like now that I have developed on a programming language and I do have decent analytical skills, why do I actually need these data structures and algorithms? So to answer that, yeah, how many of you guys like undo feature of Microsoft Word, where you hit Control Z and then it reverts your changes, your most recent change? A lot, right? I am absolutely in love with the feature. So imagine a scenario where I am writing 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and by mistake I have typed 5. So I need, if I press Control Z, it would remove 5 for me, right? That is how undo works. Now, if you see this particular diagram, the one on the left represents a stack data structure. To imagine a stack, imagine a pile of notebooks in front of a teacher. Now, how does that work? Whenever a student comes to submit submit his notebook, what he would do is he would just go on and add on top of the pile, right? And when the teacher or the professor wants to correct notebooks, he would also do the same. He would pick up the first file from the top and he would start correcting that. So this is how a stack works. Now imagine I have typed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I didn't mean to type 5. A stack would help me remove this 5 because imagine the notebook example, and within that, if you remove the first file, that is essentially undoing the submission that the student made, right? So that is how the undo feature works. Another example is about the autocomplete feature. I think a lot of you guys would also love this feature. I totally love it again. Now, if you see here, this is a data structure called a trie, and it has a lot of branches, and there are a lot of nodes, and from each of the nodes, there are a lot of branches. Each branch points to another node. So in trie data structure, what we store is these alphabets that form a kind of a dictionary. Like if you want to see all of the words that begin with T, you would go to the node T and then you would drill down further. For example, it would be TA, TB, like how you would search in a dictionary, right? You would move to the page T and then you would see TA and then next would come TB, TC and so on. Similarly, there is a data structure called trie. Now, if you store in a trie, let's say I have typed T, I would come to this node. Now, once I have typed E, my string becomes TE. Now it will move on to this node, and after that, what the autocomplete feature does is that it just suggests you the branches that follow your current node. So if I type TE, I'm sure you guys know, it would prompt me TEA, TED, TEN, and so on, all of the words that begin with TE. So you see how these data structures help you do a lot of these complex problem solving. So a lot of these data structures provide optimal solutions to a lot of real life problems. That is why data structures and algorithms are definitely required. Yep. So the second bullet point under the skills part is interest area based skills. Now this one kind of double clicks with the answer that Dona provided in her session to the last question, and I'm not sure if all of you got a chance to hear that. So you will be overwhelmed with a lot of interest area based skills. Like some of you might be interested in web development, and you might choose to take this track, the web development track, where you would get to learn technologies like AngularJS, React.js, etc. And some might be into machine learning. So some of you might be a lot more interested in making chatbots or in natural language processing and so on. So you might want to acquire those skills, right? Then there is server-side app development, which essentially means backend in layman language. So there are technologies for backend development as well. You people who are interested in server-side app development can start learning Django, Node.js, etc. Also, there's one more interest area based track, which is the mobile development track. This comprises iOS and Android development. So to do so, you would learn Swift or Objective-C or Java for Android development. So if you see, I would recommend, in fact, Donna did the same. I would recommend you guys to pick one of these up and start working on it. Once you start working on it, you get more and more familiar and comfortable with the technology. And taking up courses or studying about one of these tracks will definitely help you get projects, internships, as well as it will help you prepare for the final placements. And leave all of this behind. Most importantly, it is your chance to choose what you want to work on. You must have heard a lot of people cribbing about their job being outside of their interest areas. You don't want to be one of them. So what kind of job you get, this will define the trajectory of your career for the upcoming few years, at least, to say the least. So you do not want to be stuck at the wrong place. Hence, I would recommend you guys to pick up one, at least at a time, one of these technologies, one of these paths, and then start taking up courses and then start working on projects within these domains. Now, coming to the, so you don't want to be doing the wrong thing. If you see, these are some examples of ML and AI done wrong. There is this example where customers who bought this item also bought this. This is a very lame recommendation from an ML perspective. And also, if you see some of the AI, you would get to see a lot of these if then else, if then else. That is not AI, my friends. So let's get to some real work, some meaty projects where you get to work. It could be your pet project. Again, it doesn't have to be a project with a company or with a startup. It can be your pet project. You can start implementing, like, for example, if I were to learn web development, I would think, hey, how would I implement an e-commerce website? And I could start small and then start building out modules. I would divide the problem into multiple modules, and I would start taking up module by module and then finishing that. That is the best way to learn it. I'm sorry. Yep. So let's get to the action plan. I think I'm already 5 minutes past my time. So let's quickly move to the last important slide, the action plan. So being students, what I would say is that you need to develop a solid foundation and the core competencies that we talked about. Like OOPS concepts are a definite question that you can expect in every interview of yours that you sit for a technical recruitment. DS and algo also is a very integral part of interviews these days. A very good starting point for learning DS and algo is Data Structures and Algorithms Made Easy. It's a book by Narasimha Karumanchi. It has a few mistakes here and there, but I think it's still a very, very good starting point if you want to start learning these. Also Geeks for Geeks, and there are a couple more platforms that help you learn a lot of these DS and algo and OOPS related concepts. So that is definitely one where you cannot discount. I mean, you cannot say, hey, okay, it's okay, I'll learn a programming language later, let me first focus on machine learning. That doesn't make sense at all. So the first step would definitely be to develop a solid foundation in your core competencies. Then I would also recommend that you pick up your interest area and start learning stuff and working on the same, because you get to learn a lot when you start working hands-on on a technology. Then the third part is that start solving problems. If you have not already done, start solving problems and writing code. And by writing code, you heard me. I asked you to write code on pen and paper. And you can also use these platforms like HackerRank, CodeChef, InterviewBit, etc. Now comes the most interesting part. A lot of you would have a lot of uncertainty in terms of, hey, what should I do for this summer? And to answer that, I have condensed all of the data that I found and what helped me into a list that is sorted in descending order of impact on your profile. So the first one is definitely an internship. An internship does go a long way to show that you are experienced in something and you have really worked on something. So it adds a lot of credibility to your profile. Then if you somehow do not get an internship, don't be disheartened. You can take up a project. Again, as I said, it could be a pet project or an academic project, or even it could be a freelancing project. So project should be at your priority number 2 for this summer, for every summer for that matter. And I'll get to how you can structure all of your summers in the next slide. But before that, projects are definitely priority 2 for you. And if you somehow do not manage to get a project either, then what you can do is, rather than wasting your time in summer, you can take up a course either online or in person, so that you can at least upskill yourself. Then if even that doesn't work, if all of the four doors have closed for you, then you still should do self-study. You should still develop a solid foundation in your core competencies by learning yourself. So this is the kind of a summer plan that you should actually be doing. And to give you an example, I'll quote my example. What I did was I was into mining engineering, as I said, but I was always interested in software. So in my second year, I started applying randomly to a lot of companies on 2019.com and Internshala, and I used to run a pet project of mine, which was to just build a forum, a very basic forum, and to basically just get the drop downs and the menus and the sliders and all of these elements. So that was a pet project of mine, which helped me actually bag an internship. So you see, the value of a pet project is also a lot in terms of getting an internship. So I was fortunate to get an internship in my second year summer in Bangalore at a startup. Now, a very important thing to know here is that when you start applying to internships, you would get keep in your head that if you apply to 20 companies, you'll get responses from only 5 of them. And out of those 5, only 1 or 2 will be positive. So there's no need to be disheartened. You just have to keep applying till you get the right job you want. And another important aspect of internship is that while most of the big companies, most of the top tech companies take up interns from campus, you can still use these portals like 2019.com, internshala.com, etc. to get internships in startups. And startups are definitely the place to learn. And at your level, I would definitely recommend you guys to go for an internship in a startup. So in my story, I got a chance to go to a web development firm, which was a Bangalore-based startup, and I did my summer intern there, and I then leveraged the skills that I acquired there, and I leveraged the experiences that I gained there to get an internship in my third year, which was again something that I had applied myself. I got an internship on campus, but I didn't like the job much, so I rather went on to search for an internship that more suits and aligns to my interest. So what I did was I again reached out to a lot of people on 2019 and Internshala, and believe it or not, I found the right opportunity on Facebook, not LinkedIn, on Facebook. And then I went for the internship, and I got a pre-placement offer from that, but that was something that I mean, the terms were so that I could not take that. But these internships helped me a lot when I was being recruited at Oracle. So in almost all of the 5 or 6 rounds, if I remember correctly, that I had on campus, every interviewer was very keen in understanding how I worked in my internship, what kind of projects I took up, what kind of features I worked on. Have I worked on security aspects? Have I worked on the database aspects? Have I worked on web development? So a lot of value is being added when you do internships. So that is how I got placed at Oracle. And after 2 years at Oracle, I found I mean, out of the blue, I got a call from a recruiter at Microsoft, and there was a new team being built from scratch. It was under Azure. So it was a completely new team which was being built from scratch, and I found the opportunity really interesting, and that's how I joined Microsoft. And yeah, so the point here again is that even today even today I have to, in my interviews, answer a lot of questions on data structures and algorithms and on oops concepts. So there's no looking back from that. There's no discount in developing a solid foundation in your core competencies. Even today, if I have to switch jobs, then I would still have to pick up the books and brush up on these foundations of mine. So this is something that will persist with you in the long run as well. So it's always good to kind of start early and set your foot right and develop a solid foundation in your core competencies. And also, as I just mentioned some time back, what kind of job you get defines the trajectory of your career for the subsequent years. So so an internship and a job in your interest area is something that you should definitely target for. There should not be a lot of compromise. There can be a little bit here and there, but do not make a lot of compromises in these interest areas of yours. So I think, yeah, that was all that I had. Now I'll keep it open for any questions that you guys have. I'm sorry I've taken a lot of time, but if time permits, then maybe we can take up some questions.
Yes, thank you so much for the talk. Actually, the audience really found it very amazing, and like they were continuously pinging up in the chat that they found the session really amazing and helpful. So thank you for this talk. And
can someone help me with the questions?
Yeah.
Or are there none?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions actually. So we are a little short on time. So we can just ask one question which is like very popular and like everyone wants to know. So Smriti,
thank you, Chirag, for that amazing session. Very informative. We've got lots of questions coming in, but because of time constraints, we're going to ask the ones that we think are important. The first one is, because of the ongoing pandemic, the corona, what advice do you have for students that are going to aim for placements in the near future?
Right. Great question. These are definitely times of a lot of uncertainty. A lot of companies are walking back from offers that they have rolled out to candidates. But I would still say that it's only going to make the competition tougher. Jobs are not going to close, companies are not going to shut down, so you will definitely have a lot of opportunities. And I would say utilize this time in upskilling yourself, utilize this time in learning something new, utilize this time in creating a pet project of yours to implement something that interests you. So I would say utilize a lot of time in upskilling yourself. And about the placements for final years, I'm sure you would already be under a lot of stress for these placements. Don't worry about that, be calm, and it's just going to make the competition tougher, that's all. But we should not be scared of competition, right? I mean, it always have to be this way, that survival of the best. I hope that answers your question.
Amazing, awesome. So okay, so we have a few more questions, so let me ask this one. So the question is, does academic learning match the industry
Okay,
requirement?
the next question we have is for non-CS students, maybe electronics. What skills do they need to concentrate on, and how do they compete against students who have CS as their core domain?
Great question again. As I mentioned, I am also from a non-circuit branch. I am from mining engineering. So a lot of these companies post out their requirements. And the first one is in a lot of cases, BTech in computer science or relevant experience. So that is something that companies are okay with compromising on. It's okay if you don't have a CSE background, but if you can compete, if you can clear the written test, if you can appear for an interview and do well, then you're golden. I mean, there's no restriction. I have never seen a candidate getting rejected just because of his background. So we do not, I mean, I as an interviewer never look at the branch from which the candidate has done his BTech from. I never look at that. We look at all of the other skills that I mentioned in one of the previous slides. We look at analytical skills, and also it is not. I mean, interviews do not work this way that we find reasons to kick you out, but rather we try to find reasons to take you in. So we are very accepting in those terms. So there's absolutely no need to worry if you're from a non-CSE or a non-circuital branch. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
thank you so much, Chirag.
Yep, I can hear you both.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, so just a technical issue. Just a last question, and then we'll move on to the next talk. So, does academic
Sure.
learning match the industry requirements?
Well, this is a very subjective matter. Great question again. This is a very, very subjective thing. See, in computer science, you would see a lot of courses like data structures and algorithms is definitely one of the prerequisite courses in a lot of bachelor's programs. But you would also see some courses like operating systems, some courses like networking. So for circuit branches and for CSE specifically and for IT specifically, you have no option but to go through these subjects. But for others, I would again say that these are not core competencies, and these are just areas of interest. If you are if you are interested in maybe a DevOps kind of a role, or if you are maybe someone who is passionate about how the infrastructure works, or how cloud works, or how things like that work, then you would definitely, then these academic subjects would definitely help. But otherwise, we all have the same starting line, be it a computer science graduate who has taken up courses in data structures, or be it someone from a ceramic engineering background who has self-learned these courses.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. That was very clear, and it was like a really amazing session. A lot of us really enjoyed it, and I think most of our questions got answered, but still there was a lot of questions. So for those of you who didn't got the question answered, all we'll again drop in the handle for Sir, Twitter handle and the LinkedIn handle wherever he's active. You can always ask him questions, and I'm sure he'll be happy to help you out.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Sir, for joining the meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there was some lag. Okay, thank you so much. So we have the third speaker already, and I'm so sorry, Sonia ma'am. So our third speaker is Sonia Sahgal. She is an experienced HR professional and university recruiting lead at Microsoft. She is always engaged in university and early in career hiring programs, branding and talent engagement. So she'll be the best person to talk about how to keep yourself relevant in these changing times. So without further ado, I would really like to welcome ma'am in this session, and we are really so sorry that we kept you waiting.
That's fine. How's everyone doing? I'm assuming we're talking to a larger audience beyond the Teams channel. But I will really appreciate if this group at least is interactive. While I'm monitoring the chat window, I'll really sort of look up to you guys to be talking. Two things. Keynotes sort of come to me as more prescriptive. I don't think the topic and the area that I work in can be prescriptive. It is behavioral. And behaviors always have to be adopted. So when we are talking about adopting changes, we have to be interactive. So I'd really appreciate if we keep it conversational. At the cost of being the last speaker, you also run the risk of keeping attention span intact. I'll try my best. And to start on that, before I talk about anything, let's do a small thing. I know we are all on mute, but on the count of 3, 2, 1, what I'll look for you to talk is, hello everyone, welcome to the session. So let's just greet and welcome each other to the session and start the conversation. So on my count, we will talk, we will not worry about being together, but we will say, hello everyone, welcome to our session. All right, on the count of 3, 2, 1, all of us together. 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone.
Hello everyone.
Welcome everyone.
Welcome to the
Session. Okay.
Welcome to our
All
session.
right. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really glad. Sayan, thank you so much for really getting me in touch with this group. It's absolutely my privilege to be talking to you all, and for those of you who are listening. The way I have sort of structured our conversation today is I will want to tell you some bit in terms of progression. What we have done is we've spoken about technology. Dona really had a great session talking about technicalities of things, and then we had Chirag coming in and talking about how to ace the interview. And now we are progressing towards, if you have technology, if you have the right skills, then what else is essentially needed? I have the skill and the will. So what is that secret ingredient that I'm going to be talking about that's going to make the mix more interesting is what we will look at. I also want to really spend some time talking about the questions that you all might have. So we will spend time towards questions towards the end of the session, if that's okay with you all. I'm trying to project the slides. Let me know when you can see.
Yes, ma'am, we can see the slides.
Okay, great. And on your screens is a little intro to me. What you see is my little journey into this industry and into the tech world. What I've tried to depict is me as an individual, couple of things that I do that keep me engaged. But I think what stands out beyond my circle of influence, my family, and my some of my passions are that I love what I do and I do what I love. So I'm really proud to be engaged with an organization that allows me to be myself. it flexes me to really do everything that I want to do in this life, in the 24-hour day that I have. And what is symbolic on this slide is I'm actually practicing what I'm talking about. So that's me. I have been into the talent sourcing world. I've been into recruitment for more than 2 decades. That really talks about some of the gray hair on my head. But I have been doing a lot of conversations with students, with individuals around how to really be progressive in your career journey. When I'm not doing this, I'm spending time with my family. In my past life, I have been engaged into art, into theater, into flying. And I think all that comes back to be talking about my current job. I've spent close to a decade with Microsoft, before which I was with Google and Deloitte, where I was involved in organization development, recruiting, and deep interventions with leaders. Okay, what are we talking about today? Sayan and me discussed on what should we be talking about, and this is what came to my mind. I said we're just going to talk about how to keep yourself relevant in changing times. But as I did that, I was also wondering that what am I going to tell you? I don't think I'm going to be talking about anything different that you don't know. I'm probably going to bring out stories and anecdotes which would have come to you in different TED Talks, Tech Talks that you've attended. But as I step into it, I think I wanted to start by telling you something which probably has been a white paper for some of you, you would have studied, but let's do a little story. Let's do a story around Bill and Paul, who came together to set up this startup years back from their outhouse, and with a mission to empower every person on this planet to achieve more. If you have not guessed whom I'm talking about, the company went on, to be the windows to the world. It developed an operating system that became the lifeline for the industry in the years to come. Bill eventually went on to become the first CEO of Microsoft. And responding to the need of the hour, he spent his time and energy in consolidating and really establishing the organization towards its vision and mission, which was around empowering the world to achieve more. It went on the revenues would stay and multiply. And with that growth story, Steve multiplied it further. And that was the need of the hour. As we consolidated our growth, as we sort of reflected on where we are, and as Steve gave way to Satya, the reflection was that the humongous size that we had become, there was a strong need to invest in people and culture. And there was a response around that. All that you today read about growth mindset, culture, our adoption of model coach care is a response to be relevant. Why did I bring this up? What I'm trying to get to is, if we would have done model coach care about 20 years back, we would not have been relevant. If Steve would have spoken about really building our culture story, we would have been too early, because our need at that time to stay relevant was really to consolidate on our growth story. If we would have made acquisitions, which we are making today about 20, 30 years back, I don't think we could have sustained the kind of growth we are talking about. All right. Hence, the premise on which I'm talking about to you is all the technology, all the skill set but with a basic point of being relevant. Now, what does this pressure of being relevant get us to? I think we've spoken about the pandemic. I was hearing some questions. What do we do differently? I think in a very candid confession, what I want to tell you is that for years together, for most of you, especially for the engineering community of our country, which has been most sought after, and I'm very proud of that fact. I think my country produces one of the best engineering minds in the world. But what has happened with the recent situation, which is unknown, which is sort of presenting us to think about things differently, which is nobody knows how to really respond to it. And in that, how am I supposed to respond? And that is why I know a while back Chirag was talking about, hey, you should make sure you have a pet project. You should make sure, you are interning somewhere. And as you do that, how are you going to make sure that you do not give way to your anxiety, that you do not get into, I didn't have the right internship to really invest in my career. All right. And with all this at hand, I think I wanted to give you a small little toolkit that I was trying to put together for this conversation. And that is the 5 Olympic rings. I'm personally really enthused and amused by this structure of 5 rings, because to me, it personifies excellence and perfection. If I go back as a kid, one of the similes that used to be given to me, if I ace something is that, I'm really practicing for the Olympics. And that's the paramount visual that I have in my mind towards these 5 circles. And as you get into, the Olympics of life, how do you compete with your own self? And I've tried to put some of the thoughts together there. We can talk about it. You can stop me anytime if you think you have a point of view on that or you have a question. I will take that in the end as well. But I think one of the things that I've spoken about, and I cannot stress enough, is, change is the constant that you should be thinking about. Even if it is about your schedules, even if it is about saying, you know what, in the 6th semester, I think about internships, I interview for it, and then I go for it in 7th semester, and that's how life works. I don't think that's the new constant. I've met students, I've spoken to students who've thought about internships in their first year, 2nd semester, 3rd semester. So how are you changing that approach, and how are you constantly questioning what the normal was yesterday? I think one of the disconnect that we've had in the recent times towards this pandemic is really we've not been able to accept the change the way it has crept in drastically to us, because we're not used to really changing the way we've been brought up with certain values. So we really need to be agile in embracing the change. And as you sort of keep embracing the change, you will have to constantly groom yourself. And by grooming, I mean you will have to grow, you'll have to learn, right? I love what Satya quoted in one of the conversations he was having with us as employees. And he said, nothing stays. This industry does not respect traditions. It only respects and gives way to innovations. And innovations happen with learning. So if you're not constantly, learning and growing, and in that process reinventing yourself, are you questioning your own status quo? A slide back, I said, if you're competing with yourself, I think that's where you need to be. I love what I put on the red circle, which is looking at things from a different perspective, from another point of view. Are you really able to look at the what and how? And I don't know if somebody from my immediate team is hearing this, they would totally relate to it. I love to look at the what and how, both in life and at work. And it's important that even in life, we do not look at crossing the knots and saying, hey, I'm done with this. Have you really looked at things from all the perspectives, whether it's your project, whether it's your internship submission? Have you been able to really bring in a unique perspective? And you as techies would know that when you are trying to, fix a bug, or you are trying to really look at things differently, every perspective matters. All right. I think as you do all of this, and if you feel the pressure that you're being asked to be someone different, with this task list of really learning and refreshing and reinventing and looking at things differently, sometimes I talk to people and they say, you know what, this is not me. You're actually asking me to be someone else. No, I'm not. I'm still asking you to be your authentic self. Bring your authentic self at work. And that's what we encourage employees at Microsoft to be. And use Microsoft as a platform to achieve more. I think a lot of examples at work around technology and other areas is when employees bring themselves to work without any inhibition of being someone different. Those days are gone, where we used to say, this is my avatar for being at work, where I cannot bring emotions, where I cannot bring family. As a mom of two, I'm not scared to be talking about my challenges at home, and I bring them to work because my organization allows me to think about it while being at work and while performing my KPIs, my key impact areas. All right. And what happens when I'm empowering and enabling others while being this? There are a set of values that you get into, right? That you actually acquire. And what are those values? I think the strongest and the one that I love, this is a concept that got introduced in Satya's book, but I think I just love and live by it, and that's growth mindset for me. The ability to fail and learn from your failures and get up and ace that thing is what growth mindset is significantly talking about. I don't think any of us have lived a life without failures, but what have you done with those failures essentially defines you as an individual. Have you had the ability and agility to get yourself together and say, fair enough, I know my toolkit to success now? I think a lot of acquisitions of Microsoft talk about that story. We've not been in the right space and in the right time for a lot of products, mobile. Some of the acquisitions that we did, we were spoken about, hey, this is not the right way, or this is not the right move. And we have learned from it. We've had to bring back products, we've had to redefine our story. But I don't think we've ever shied away from really accepting and acknowledging it. And that's the authenticity that you get by doing all this, right? And in turn, it gets you a lot of respect, a ton of respect for yourself, by yourself, and from others. Because you don't have to be different people at different times. You are just this one person across the spectrum of things. All right. I'm going to take a pause. I think I've been speaking for a long time. I'm not able to look at the screen as well. Let me know if there are any questions or any clarifications you need for what we have spoken about till now.
Yes, ma'am, we do have questions.
Yes, ma'am, we do have questions.
Sure.
Yes,
what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing for a while. Is that okay? So that I can see and hear better?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Smriti, could you hear me? Could you ask the first question?
Yes. The question goes like, how do students from universities where Microsoft doesn't come for placements stand out and get noticed by Microsoft?
Interesting one. And this is not a new question. I think with the scale and volume of engineering talent available in our country, I think this is a pertinent question that I get from not only students, I think our own set of employees. I think we have a set of colleges that have shown history of performance, both in terms of the student performance and when they became employees for us. And we continue to engage with them. Having said that, there have been a lot of efforts in giving way to newer set of colleges, and how we do that, I'm not sure if some of you have followed the challenges, the nationwide challenges that Microsoft has hosted in recent times. One of it was One Test, which was our unique way of reaching out to the longer set of colleges, which have promising inputs to us. And by opening up that internship test for them, because internship is an avenue where we highly invest, both in terms of our time and effort and in terms of numbers, just to make sure that we spot that right talent, both in terms of students and institution. Once we find that right match, then there is a larger investment in terms of going back and helping them nurture and elevate the student quality for us to be really engaging with them directly. All right, so the short answer to your question is watch out for those tests where we open up for colleges beyond our regular list of colleges.
Yes, ma'am. I think that answers the question. Okay, so I think we have another one, which is like pretty interesting, and a lot of us would like to know the answer to. So the question is, how to correctly answer, where do you see yourself in 5 years, which is like asked in most interview questions.
Good one. I don't ask that question. Fortunately, I didn't get that asked as well in some of the interviews that I had to give. I think I'll go back to what I said in the beginning of this discussion. When you talk about behavior, there is no right or wrong in terms of where will you see yourself in 5 years. Honestly, if you would have asked me this question about 20 years back, I would have spoken about, hey, I want to be like the chief HR officer of this company. I want to have like 3 cars and 2 houses, and I would not want to shy away from that. So it's a correlation of your life stage, where you are and where you want to be, which changes with experience, maturity, and as you gain life experiences. All right. So I really don't want to be prescriptive around, hey, this is the right way of saying be modest. Do not say I don't want to grow. But having a learning mindset is something which you should have. And if you have that, I would encourage you to talk about that. I have spoken about really trying to grow, learn, trying to really be authentic, trying to really learning from life experiences. And those are things that do not get outdated at any time. They are not like, you have to be person specific to be doing that, right? It is very important that you think about what is your priority. When I go and interview at most of the campuses, for students who do not choose Microsoft as their top of mind, they have reasons, they have priorities. And as an organization and as an HR leader, I totally respect it. If your priority is quick growth, if your priority is quick money, I don't want to say easy, I'm sorry. But if that's your priority, I don't think Microsoft is the place for you. But if you want a quality life, if you really deeply invest in life and its benefits, if you really want care and culture, that's the organization. So I think before answering the question of where you want to be in 5 years, you need to have your priority question answered to yourself.
Okay. I think it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Another question is, what is the one trait in a potential candidate that makes you interested in that candidate?
You mean makes me interested for Microsoft? Is that the question?
Yeah, like for
right.
recruiting that person, yeah.
Okay, all right. I think to me, it is a direct bet on the potential. And what we need to know is that when we meet potential employees at colleges, there is no data, there is no reference to back up the decision we make. All right, the decisions, all the university hiring decisions across the world are made on potential. And when you have no data and your decisions are based on potential, there are traits that you look for. When you get into traits, there are trainable skills and there are non-trainable skills. The tech skills, the ability to code, the ability to really debug, stack, line, all of that are things that we continuously invest in and we'll be able to coach. What I cannot change is attitude, approach, and a growth mindset, right? And those are called as Microsoft fit for us. In fact, for those of you who have gone through the Microsoft interview process or have read about it, there is an as appropriate interview that happens that basically focuses on you being a Microsoft fit. And that is all about the Microsoft values. Are you a Microsoft fit? Will you be the leader for tomorrow for Microsoft? And that's the deep-rooted investment we do for every individual that we look for to be hired for Microsoft.
Okay, amazing. So this is a question which is really interesting. So like for example, a candidate is trying to apply for Microsoft and like he or she is really interested. So as a candidate's approach, should personal branding be more preferred over technical skills or the other way around?
I would say it's a combination of both. Lacking technical skills and having good personal branding really will not go anywhere, because at the end of the day, it is a tech and a tech organization. So the relevant skills will be there. I would really take a pause on personal branding and see what level of personal branding are we talking about? Because when you are applying to an organization at this experience level, we are not looking at you to be socially existing, if I may use that term, right? We are looking at you to be relevant. We are looking at you to be well informed. What really helps in terms of branding is how have you performed in various challenges of your academic career, right? There are people who've really aced the JEE entrance. They've done hackathons. They've really done app-based projects. I met someone, I remember, I think at VIT, where the person said that overnight he built an app and he submitted it on Microsoft Store and it got approved. Those are the pieces that really go and talk about a brand. I'm really not too keen to be talking about what is the brand outside of that, because there's not enough inference that we make anything beyond that. And I'm sure the life stage that all of you are in does not prompt you to go beyond that as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is just one more question which we should ask, because it's
Yeah.
okay, and then I think we should get this over. And so the question is,
Yeah, I think this is what.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is the kind of question that most of the students, like right now, as they do projects in their semesters, they usually ask this question of what kind of projects should they be doing that would add more weight to their resume as a whole when applying as a student.
Correct. Very, very relevant and pertinent questions that students come up with. I also talk to students where they are very, very particular that, hey, don't put me in this group, don't do this, otherwise, I won't have I won't have weightage on my profile and stuff like that. Honestly, if you ask me, as Microsoft, I was having a chat with my leaders, I think just yesterday, where as an organization, we've agreed that we are not going to look at your internship experience as a shortlisting criteria. And even now, Microsoft does not do that. What we look at is what do you as an individual bring on the table. So I don't think essentially there is any weighted and a less weighted project. What really defines it is your performance and your investment and commitment to it. If an organization, be it Microsoft or any other organization of its stature, is coming out and investing in internship, it is a big deal because it takes a lot from our end to be really taking out those managers' time and really bringing out that capability for an 8 to 10 weeks investment, right? And each project is thought through. Each project, when it is brought out to the V team that looks into it, it is really looked at, hey, is it feasible? Is it doable? Is it approachable? And today, when we are talking about virtual internships at Microsoft, we are also looking at, is it virtually doable? Are we putting the student at risk by doing this project because it's not virtually doable? All right. So I will only encourage you to not get into thinking, hey, this project is necessarily not as meaty as this one. I think what defines is what are you taking away out of it? And as you are doing your internship, how are you getting to know the organization and its vision better? How are you investing yourself towards it? Because it's not just the project that you get into, you invest yourself with the organization. You have ample opportunity to do that. All right.
All right, ma'am. I think that's all the questions we have right now.
Yes.
All right. That's really good. I have to tell you, I really enjoyed answering most of these questions. One last piece before I sign off is, I know I've heard Chirag speaking about it. You would have heard from a lot of leaders reading about it. There are companies that are sort of reviewing their decisions on university offers. I'm reading about it. I'm happy. I'm glad that Microsoft is standing tall to its commitments. Globally, we've not sort of taken away or backed our decision on any offer. Having said that, I want you all to think broad in these tough times. I don't think internship is the only thing that should stress you out. I know it's going to be tough. Some of you have reached out. Some of the other colleges have also reached out saying, hey, what can we do about this? But at the end of the day, it does not matter where you interned, what you interned on. What matters is what you did of your studies. How did you apply it for a broader and a stronger impact? All right. I think continuously tell yourself on what is the kind of impact you want to drive off the learning that you're making. Think about what can be that project that you can do outside of an internship. All right. With that, I think I wish you all the very best for the next 2 days. My Twitter handle, my LinkedIn handle is all up, and I'll really appreciate if you can share it. I'm happy to stay connected. I'm happy to come back and talk to you all. Feel free to write to me. I think I'll try my best to be as responsive as I can. But it was an absolute pleasure talking to you all, and I wish you all the very best. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really amazing.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for joining us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that was really great and it was a lot of fun. Now there's more fun left. There's another activity which we want to do. I know it's pretty late. I know it's like 20 minutes past what we wanted to this session to end, but it was really insightful and really wonderful to have all of you here. Now the thing is, we are going to have an activity, a fun quiz. So I'm going to share the quiz link. You can find that in the chat. So what you have to do is go to the Kahoot quiz. You'll find quiz about like how well do you know Windows and Microsoft. So it has like 10 questions. So go ahead and enjoy the quiz. I'm gonna also do a screen share and share the results of the quiz live, and also play a very soft background music for all of you so that you can enjoy. If you find any difficulty logging into the quiz or like getting inside the quiz, please ping in the chat and we'll help you out. Do you want to say anything, Smriti?
Yes, and I really, really hope that all the viewers enjoyed this session. It was really amazing, really informative. I think most of the questions were questions that a lot of students ask like now and during their semesters, and we have a lot of MSPs that are join with us, and I hope everything is as they wish they could experience. And yeah, let's get on with the quiz.
Sure, amazing. So I think I'll just do the screen share now and let a few people join, and I'll just share the screen. Okay, let me do that. Can you see the screen now? I think I have it on.
No, I can't see it.
You can't? Okay, maybe it's the delay in the stream, but let's just wait for a few moments.
The Kahoot is visible.
Okay, awesome. So someone just joined in. So yeah, all of you please join into the quiz, and once you're done with the quiz, let us know in the chat. We'd love to see that how many of you are done and how many of you are still doing it, and we will display the leaderboard on screen. So yeah, we'll share the quiz link again for those of you who didn't get it, or it might have gone up the chat.
You know, this young man just texted me right now.
Okay, so I think there are 11 more players who haven't finished yet. Thank you so much for playing this game. We are gonna wait a few more minutes for those players to finish the game. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow at the same time at 8 p.m. IST. We are gonna have an amazing session on JavaScript and getting started with React JS. So we'll be covering a lot of stuff.
Oh, we're gonna have Sayan himself joining us.
Yeah, we are gonna
Right,
have
Sayan and Anisha are gonna talk tomorrow.
we are gonna have an amazing session on React. So for beginners, for non-beginners, it's okay for everyone. So make sure you join tomorrow's session as well. And we are gonna just wait up for a few more minutes.
Thank you so much for and thank you so much for joining this session, though. Really appreciate the support.
Okay guys, I think that this should be it for this session. And the quiz is live though, so the quiz is it's for an hour, so you will be able to access the link and play for those of you who aren't finished right now. So you can keep playing and until 11 p.m. IST. After that the quiz link will close because that's how Kahoot manages it. So that's it, and I think we'll be signing off now. Smitty, do you have anything else to say?
No, I think that's all. It's just please join in tomorrow. We're gonna have Sayan and Anisha speaking on their topics, and thank you for joining in.
Yes, thank you so much for joining in. We'll be signing off. Thank you. Have a great night or have a great day wherever you are signing in
Great
from.
day, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, bye-bye. See you all in the next session.
Okay, bye-bye.